SALFORD 2.0 sees the change of an era, the passing of the torch, from the working class era to the money-driven powerhouses that have changed the face of the area and the communities, without any care for its past or history. When the heart of a community stops beating, the repercussions can be devastating. The Victoria Theatre was the heart of the community, and it all started when it opened its doors on the 10th of December 1900. It held a capacity of 2,000 people, but due to its success, the capacity was increased to 3,000 in 1910. The building's foundation stone was laid in 1899 by actor Sir Henry Irving, along with the wildly famous Bram Stoker. Inside, the theatre was a thing of beauty, designed by an era when craftsmanship and hard work was at the forefront of its game. A year after the theatre opened, it was granted a cinema licence and became a popular hotspot for the locals in the area. After a brief unsuccessful attempt to run the venue as a bingo hall in 1973, the theatre sadly closed its doors, and it remained in the pitch black until the 1980s, when a second attempt was successful and the bingo hall remained open until 2008. All that remains is a beaten carcass, and the doors have remained shut. Nothing but echoes of its lost past remain sealed within. Is this the end of the theatre, or does it have one last encore left?
Now that place there is a 2-in-1. It's sadly surviving Salford, but it's also a gem. It really is, it's an absolute gem. And the history of this place is unbelievable. So grand and beautiful inside. Words can't even describe, the effort that went in to build this building. And now it's just sort of a derelict carcass of what it used to be. It's such a shame. But even when it became a bingo hall, this place, it brought happiness to the community. People enjoyed it. It brought people together. And you've got the places there when it was the theatre, and all the shows that would have been performed there. Imagine the energy in that building that has been pumped up through people that are nervous before they come out on stage, and then the acts that would have been ready to perform, and then when it's all over, the relief, and they can take a big sigh of relief that it's over and they can now enjoy the moment, and all that energy is just sort of pumped up, captured in that beautiful place. And to see it in the state it's in now, it really does pull on your heartstrings. There's a lot of people trying to get this thing back up and running, and I'll try and, if I can, get in touch with the people that are fighting to keep this place open. I'll leave a link to the Facebook page or something, but just look at it. It provided so much, the locals of the area, even, like I say, not just the theatre when it was a bingo hall. It was something that the locals enjoyed doing. It brought the community together. And even my nana had some great stories. My dad tells me, sadly my nana's no longer with us anymore, but my dad used to tell me some stories about my nana in this place, and I remember her telling me stories about it. So it's passed on from generation to generation of what a great building this were. Such a shame.
When the heart of a community stops beating, the repercussions can be devastating.
Right, you two, you better stop fighting. Your dad'll be home in a minute.
He started it. No, I didn't, it was you.
Jimmy! Is that what you want? You want to throw it all away? You're gonna lose your family.
Your accent? Yeah. Tell your dad that's nice language when he starts. Oh, Granddad! Granddad! You're up!
So I'm in Broughton, like near the cliff, and the cobbles are still down. Look at that grand old house up there, and the old street lamp, just like the last video, they're still going. But if you look down here, you can still see the tram marks. And I know I've said it in a few of my videos, but sometimes I say that sometimes you can, the past is still very much in the present. You just have to look a little bit harder. And we've got the old cobbles down here. And this is what I mean, because the old trams, the old tram line's still here as well. So the trams would have come all the way from Broughton all the way up here, and come all the way up and then through to Prestwich this way. But these are still actually down on the floor. How amazing is that? And our past is sometimes peeking through, just like this little bit here. So it's not gone forever. And this part back in the day would have been a real extravagant place to live up here. It was very well kept, and it was that's why a lot of these houses, the massive houses, and it was because it was a wealthy area. But yeah, sometimes, like I say, the past is still very much in the present, and you've got to just look a little bit deeper, and you scratch the surface, and you sometimes find these little gems. Just like that little tram line there. I know it's only a little tram line, but it's still there, isn't it? Defiantly.
Because Salford is the only one of the only Catholic cities. You know, we don't have a Church of England cathedral like Manchester. Ours is a Catholic cathedral. And the reason why Salford Cathedral was built is because all the Catholic women gave in their wedding rings. Yeah, their gold, their wedding rings. Not the men, just the women. And to hand in their wedding rings, and that's how they built it. Yeah, well, yeah, it's a magical place. Both Salford and Manchester are quite magical. I mean, these are like magical stories. Well, Clockwork Orange came to Salford. Anthony Burgess was a Salford kid. And all that bunny, all that Bunston, Mac Jib and Mac Jab and all that lot in Clockwork Orange, all that language that they're using in Clockwork Orange is what Burgess got off the street in Salford. You know, where it's a, you know, it's this or it's that or it's a new, you know, whatever. And that was just under code language that was going about, and Burgess put that all into Clockwork Orange. It's a magical place. Magical stories.
So my dad's just been telling me that this church is a new church, but there was a really old one back in the day that they've knocked down and rebuilt this now, but we reckon that could have been off the original church there. What do you remember of it, Dad?
Well, this is my church when I was a kid. This is where we used to come. I was probably christened here.
Yeah.
My mum and dad got married here at the old original church of St Clement's, and when it must have fell into disrepair, they knocked it down and built this and merged it with St Matthias, so it's now called St Clement's with St Matthias Church. It's the original site of the old St Clement's Church, and my mum was born on this street at the end here. It's called Choir Street, and that's where she was born.
What, my nana was born on this street here?
Your nana, yeah.
So this was all terraced?
Yeah. So my mum had been born here on Choir Street, and then she moved over the road to Clarence Street, and so that's where she grew up most of her life, Clarence Street.
Right.
But Choir Street was her actual birth street where she was born.
No way. What, so was this all like terraced houses
This
here?
has been all terraces, yeah, as far as you can see, two downs.
Wow.
We've gone straight down there. And then you had like Choir Street and Tenerife Street and all them like down there.
I'll try and get a nice photograph, you know, to go over the top of this bit here.
Yeah, Tenerife Street and that's still up, but it's not at terraces anymore.
And it's still called Choir Street, isn't it?
Yeah.
All them years later, it still kept its name.
So she'd have been born here about 1933.
Wow.
That'd be your nana.
That's some history, that, isn't it?
Yeah. That's probably the wall of the old church here, if you can see.
Oh yeah, going down the side?
Yeah, that's probably the old wall, what surrounded the church.
I made Surviving Salford to highlight our past, our history and our heritage, and to document the last remnants of Salford before they're gone for good. From the old pubs that brought smiles to the faces of our grandparents, to the industrial factories that was the backbone to our city's success, now nothing but faded memories and carcasses of what they once used to be. Most of these places are staring down the barrel of the gun, eyes shut, awaiting to meet the fate. But sometimes the wrecking ball doesn't quite have the kill shot it intended, because deep down, the heart of its foundations can still be beating, and it won't lie down until its story's been told. As I was walking on the banks of the River Irwell, I noticed that there was work being carried out on a barren area of the Whit Lane estate. Peeking through the railings, I could see old street flags that had been buried for decades.
There's like old streets, I can't believe it.
I followed the flags, and to my amazement, I found the remains of an old street, which I've now discovered was Irwell Street.
Look at that. I'm going down. I'm gonna have to. Wow. Some sort of old houses. I mean, I'm touching history here. This is history.
The touch of the cold brick almost felt like a present from the past. The passing of the torch. The street had been buried like a time capsule, frozen in time, untouched, since the day it was buried. I found an old piece of rope that was tied to a post possibly left by children playing in the street all those years ago. The mud and dirt which it was walking on would have once been a place that someone would have called home. Somebody's living room. Someone's house. Nothing but scar tissue. Now the street's been buried, and it's gone for good. But that day it felt like it was meant to be seen, and it was meant to be filmed, for us all to admire it, and not to forget that the past is very much in the present. You just have to look a little harder.
It's a magic place. Magic stories.
Well, I mean that there are the colours and the beauties, the designs, the beautiful way things appear. People themselves, dull people that I thought dull, appear fascinating, interesting, mysterious, wonderful. But that's only the beginning. The man was saying it this afternoon who was taking it. Suddenly you notice that there aren't these separations. That we're not on a separate island shouting across to somebody else and trying to hear what they're saying and misunderstanding. You know, you use the word yourself, empathy. This thing's flowing underneath. We're parts of a single continent. It meets underneath the water.